Hello, geographers. This case study is about changing climate and looks at the impacts of climate change on the world and the UK. So it fits into why is climate change a global issue in OCR B Geography for Inquiring Minds. And we're going to explore those socioeconomic and environmental impacts in both of those locations. So we know that the climate has been changing since time began and will change into the future. We know that the Earth's temperature has fluctuated in the last few hundred years. However, since around 1950, there's been a dramatic increase in global temperatures, and this is what is known as global warming. So past climate changes, you can see there from the graph from 400,000 years ago to the present. And the Earth's average temperature has changed over the last 500,000 years. There are times when the global climate is warmer, interglacial phases, and times when it's been cooler, glacial phases when there's been ice ages. The last major cold period was known as the Pleistocene. It started 2.6 million years ago and ended about 10,000 years ago. Since then, conditions have been warmer, and this current warm phase we know is the Holocene. The Holocene and Pleistocene are part of the Quaternary period of Earth's history. So looking at evidence for climate change, we know that we have readings from thermometers, and temperature recordings using thermometers have shown a clear warming of the Earth's temperature over the past few decades. So this graph goes back to 1860. Scientists have seen an average combined land and ocean surface temperature increase of 0.85 degrees centigrade since the end of the 19th century. In the Northern Hemisphere, the period between 1983 and 2012 was the warmest 30-year period of the last 1,400 years. And the degree to which the climate warms in the future will depend on natural climate variability and the level of greenhouse gas emissions. If these continue, then average global temperatures will rise. However, some regions such as the Arctic will obviously warm faster than others. And if you look at this is a view of Muir Glacier in Alaska in 1941 and 2004. You can see that the glacier extends all the way down in that first photograph, and in 2004 it has retreated all the way back up the valley. Over the past 50 to 100 years, photographic evidence has shown that the world's glaciers have been melting, which has caused them to retreat. The increase in global temperatures is causing glaciers to disappear and is increasing the melting of sea ice in the Arctic. Another area that shows evidence for climate change are ice cores, and they use these to detect changes in temperature. When snow falls, it traps air into the ice. When scientists take a core of ice, it reveals the atmospheric gas concentrations at the time the snow fell. The ice can reveal the temperature of each year for the past 400,000 years. And scientists say that studying the ice cores, that there's clear evidence that there's been a rapid increase in temperature in the past decades. So that we know that there are human and natural factors in relation to those causes. A natural function of the Earth's atmosphere is to keep in some of the heat that is lost from the Earth. And we know that this is the greenhouse effect. The atmosphere allows the heat from the sun, shortwave radiation, to pass through to heat the Earth's surface. It then gives off heat, long-wave radiation. But this heat is trapped by greenhouse gases like methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, water vapor, which radiate the heat back towards Earth. And then this process obviously heats it up. It's a natural process. However, when it's enhanced, that's when it becomes an anthropogenic, a human cause. So some human activities increase the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So burning fossil fuels, like we know, coal, gas and oil, and these release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Deforestation, so chopping down trees, because we know that trees absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. If they're cut down, there'll be higher amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Dumping waste in landfill, as it decomposes, it produces methane, and agriculture. Agricultural practices lead to the release of nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere. There are natural factors increasing global warming too. So orbital changes, so the Milankovitch cycles that you know as the wobble, the tilt, and the orbit around the Earth. Volcanic activity, so during a volcanic eruption, we know carbon dioxide is released, and solar output, there are fluctuations in the amount of radiation from the sun. If there's a high amount emitted, there'll be increase in Earth's temperatures. So looking at those environmental impacts, we're going to focus on the world first and split it into environmental, economic and social. So we know that tropical storms, we've seen those increase in magnitude. Species in affected areas like the Arctic may become extinct. Temperatures are expected to rise 0.3 to 4.8 degrees centigrade between 2005 and 2100. Warmer temperatures are causing glaciers to shrink and ice sheets in Greenland to melt. Water stored on land as ice returns to the oceans. Obviously, sea levels then rise and flood lower-lying areas. Sea ice is shrinking, leading to loss of polar habitats, hence the polar bear being under threat. Species are declining due to warming, like coral reefs are suffering from bleaching due to increased water temperatures. Precipitation patterns are changing. Warming is affecting how much rain falls. The distribution and quantity of some species could change and biodiversity could decrease. And increased demand for water in hotter summers puts pressure on water supplies. In relation to our economy in the world, it means that the weather is getting more extreme. So more money has to be spent on predicting extreme weather events like floods, droughts, tropical storms. Rising temperatures are causing permafrost to thaw, and it can lead to the collapse of infrastructure. Climate change is affecting agriculture around the world. Some crop yields have got smaller, but some farmers have found in high latitude countries that the crops are benefiting actually from warmer conditions, remembering that there are positives and negatives to those impacts. And water shortages might affect our ability to generate power. So hydroelectric and thermal power require lots and lots of water. In relation to the social impacts, sea level rise will affect 80 million people. Diseases like malaria increase, and an additional 280 million people might be affected by that. In some places, reduced rainfall means an increased risk from wildfires, which can damage homes and put people's lives at risk. Some areas could become so hot and dry that they're difficult or impossible to inhabit, so you can't live there anymore. Low-lying coastal areas could be lost to the sea or flood so often they become impossible to live in, and this could lead to obviously migration and overcrowding in those areas that can allow people to live there. Some areas are struggling to provide enough water for their residents due to problems with water availability caused by changing rainfall patterns. This can lead to political tension, especially where rivers cross borders. Lower crop yields can increase malnutrition, ill health, and death from starvation, particularly in lower latitudes. Environmental impacts of climate change in the UK, so focusing in on where we live, temperatures are expected to be the greatest in southern England, where average summer temperatures could increase by 3.8 degrees by 2080. Winter rainfall is expected to increase by 16% in the west, and summer rainfall is expected to decrease by 23% in southern England. Droughts are expected to be more frequent because of this and intense, especially in the south. Flooding will become more common due to increased rainfall and sea level rise. Sea level is expected to rise by 12 to 76 centimetres by 2095, leading to the loss of habitats. Climate change will change the UK's habitats. Some species have already left their original habitats and moved north to areas with lower temperatures. This can upset the balance of natural ecosystems and lead to species extinction. In relation to economic impacts in the UK, warmer weather could boost the tourism industry, so that's great for us if people decide to stay at home. In some areas, though, it could lead to a decline, like skiing in the Cairngorms won't be able to be possible in Scotland. Temperature increase and a longer growing season may increase productivity of some crops like asparagus, onions, courgettes, peas and beans. New crops adapted to warmer climates could be grown in southern England, but reduced rainfall and droughts will increase the need for irrigation and therefore water storage schemes. The UK fishing industry could be affected. More extreme weather could put fishing infrastructure like ports and boats at risk from storm damage, and fishing livelihoods could be affected by changing fish populations and species found in UK waters. In relation to the impacts on people, flooding obviously from increased rainfall and sea level rise might damage homes and businesses, especially those that are estuaries like Hull, Cardiff, Portsmouth, London, and low-lying areas near the coast. And drier summers will affect water availability, particularly in areas of southeast England where population density is increasing. There might be more deaths from cold-related illnesses, but actually health services may have to treat more heat-related illnesses. They're going to decrease cold-related illnesses, but heat increase from like heat exhaustion. Now, this is an example of a question, long answer question worth 8 marks. The worldwide economic impacts of climate change are more concerning than the environmental impacts. To what extent do you agree with this statement? Now, this is looking at the global impacts and focusing in on economic and environmental impacts. And you have to say whether you agree with this statement or not. Pause the video at this point and have a go at answering that and putting some notes together. You may wish to go back to the slides that we just looked at in relation to global impacts on the economy and the environment. This is the mark scheme. You can see for a level 3 answer, you need to show a thorough understanding of worldwide economic and environmental impacts, which you'll be able to see on those 2 slides. So this shows that AO2, that understanding, that assessment objective. There'll be thorough evaluation of how concerning worldwide economic and environmental impacts of climate change. So that's the application with a reasonable judgment of the extent to which it's agreed that worldwide economic impacts of climate change are more concerning than those that are environmental. Have a look at this example of a well-developed idea and go through your answer and try to work out whether you are a level 3 or a level 2. If you haven't reached level 2, it might be that you're in the level 1, and see what you can do to improve your answer to push it to a level 3. Thanks for listening.